Hi, everybody. Russ here and Grizzly too. And it's UFO, paranormal, and cryptids, and just about anything else. How you doing, Grizzly?
Oh, doing fine. Hello, La La. No, you did not miss it. Poor Russ. He had his teeth worked on and he put in the wrong time. But ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to believe this. So you all watched last night's show, right? And about Sasquatch throwing dung on the cigar smoker, right?
Yeah.
So I just lost it before we came on the show. So, La, if you're going over a bridge, so hopefully you're not going to crash. So if you're driving, keep both hands on the wheel. And if you're on a ladder, get off the ladder. But if you heard last night's show about the cigar smoker and Bigfoot, Russ, take over.
Yeah, well, it was very late as usual, listening to Grizzly's show, and I was listening to the chap telling the story about investigating this case where a gentleman had gone out and he always smokes I couldn't understand what kind of a cigar he meant, but anyway, was smoking this cigar.
Illegal cigar, right?
All right. From Cuba, or
right.
All right. Anyway, the taste nice, by the way. Anyway, so and this Bigfoot must have got annoyed with him because of the smell or something, and threw an handful of dung right at him, smack bang in his face, as he was taking his glasses off. I think he said, "What is no?" As he was, what was it? He's taking a puff of his cigar and it smacked him right in the kisser. And I was laughing. I was laughing because I remembered two stories. One about me being at the zoo with my mum and dad and my sister, but one about when I was with the school, and we'd gone. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was Manchester Zoo, or if it wasn't Manchester Zoo, I think it might have been the new one had just opened called Flamingo Park. And what happened was we was all around and the teachers let us go and were told to be on his best behavior, So most of us was, apart from one friend. And I say friend, school friend, we're all friends, supposedly. And we'd gone and there was this big, massive cage with monkeys in. And what happened? My friend, he picked a stone up from the ground and he'd gone right up to the cage and he'd thrown this stone at this monkey. And the next thing, there was such a scream, and this little monkey was jumping and holding its head, and it was really, really, sort of like jumping up and down, and and we could not believe what he'd done. And he sort of like, we were laughing, oh, look at that, and we didn't think it was funny. There were a couple of people that were laughing, sort of like, and God only knows why you'd laugh at something like that, an animal being hurt. But probably I think they laughed because it was a bit of a nasty person, really. And they were probably laughing because they thought they might get a brick thrown at them or worse. So the next thing, what we knew, this big monkey had come and it was rubbing this little monkey's head and kissing it, sort of thing, and looking at it like that and sort of like rubbing it. And the monkey had pointed, this little monkey had pointed and it was jumping up and down. I won't mention his name, But so what happened next was, and I seen this, right? Yeah, and I could not believe it. The monkey, when it pointed over at him, and he had his back turned now, and he was saying, pointing, did you see that? The monkey picked this brick up, bigger than the one what he threw. It run right at the fence, woof, straight through the fence, back of his head. He copped it just the same as a little monkey. Well, he was jumping up and down, holding his head. There were a lump the size of a cricket ball. Well, no, a golf ball, and that was then. So it might have anyway. So you know, it just goes to show you when somebody tells you a story about something, and you know, there's part of you thinking, no, never. Did it really do that? But when you've witnessed something where a monkey, you know, sort of like a primate has done something and thrown something at somebody else and you witnessed it, wow. You know,
That is
sort of like,
crazy.
you know, so the thing is, yes, they do things like that. You know, there's no doubt about it. They do throw things. And to throw pull, yeah, probably do as well. Because I've seen them do that as well, but I've seen that on TV, you know, like with these shows where it shows you, you know, what happens next. And it shows you, you know, a monkey throws pull. But the thing is, the people are behind glass and it throws pull at them. So it doesn't actually hit them. But, you know, and that's on TV. But when you've seen it live for yourself, that's a different ball game, you know.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I definitely believe the guy. If that guy says it threw pull, you know, sort of like, but the thing is, be careful because, you know, if they'll throw pull, they'll throw stones, they'll throw rocks, boulders, they'll even throw tree trunks. You know what I mean? If they're in a mood and you've upset them, you know what I mean?
So you got a kick last night then watching that show, didn't you?
It just reminded me. It just reminded me. I thought it reminds me of school. You know, sort of like when we went to Flamingo. I'm sure it was Flamingo Park Zoo because it was
I
new. It had
cannot
just
believe
opened.
that.
Yeah, yeah, it were unbelievable. And you know, teachers came and they said, "Well, you know, I'd seen what you did. Serves you right." In a Yorkshire accent, serves her right. You know, that poor, how do you think the poor monkey felt when you threw that at it? You know, so
Wow, that is wild. Can you imagine that? Thank you, Lala. Can you imagine that, ladies and gentlemen, that poor little baby monkey or juvenile monkey?
yeah, yeah,
And that adult monkey
picked him
singled
out.
that child out, right?
Yeah,
And picked
yeah,
up that larger brick or rock and lodged that at that child that threw that object and hit their child in
yeah.
that crowd. I mean, wow. I mean, when he was telling me this in the green room, I lost it. I was like, unbelievable.
yeah, but
Because, you know, we do hear that they throw, you know, items at people
yeah,
in the woods, right? Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call them, you know. Thank you, Lola and Science Bob. I mean, I cannot believe that. I would love to have that on film, just both
yeah,
incidents or any incidents at all, right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, this was back in the 70s now. You know, this was back in the 70s. And we wouldn't have been, I tell you, would have been probably something like 13-year old. You know what I mean? So we weren't that young. We were old enough to know better, You know what I'm saying? We were old enough to
Right.
know better not to do that, you know, but he thought it was funny, you know, sort of like, and I must admit, nobody else, and I mean, there were other people there with their families walking around, and they wasn't happy about it because the kids were crying, you know, because the little monkey, I'm not joking, you know, sort of like it went half yelping. You know, I can almost remember, you know, its yelp, you know, screeching sort of thing, making a right din. And I'm not surprised, you know, when a fool does that. Unbelievable, you know. But I had to tell you about that, you know, sort of like because when you've experienced it yourself, you know, sort of like you know, and you've seen something happen, which
Wow.
I suppose someone always says to me, "You always seem to see things, Russ." Well, yeah, well, I've got to that age now where I've seen a lot of things, you know, sort of like, and some things, believe me, I wished I hadn't have seen, you know. That wasn't a nice thing to see, you know, sort
Right.
of like, but at least it got its just dessert, you know, sort of like with the, I don't know whether it was the mother or father, you know, sort of like the bigger monkey that came and looked at it and rubbed its head and what have you. But just like a human being, just like a human being would, came over to it, you know, put arm round and rubbed its head and looked, and it looked like there were a lump as well on the little monkey's head as well. And you know, sort of like he was lucky that nobody grassed him up, you know, sort of like,
Wow.
because I think if they would have known, I think the whole school would have been banned from going to that park and that zoo, you know. But
Right.
yeah, so that is something that just reminded me last night, you know, with the cigar chap smoking and getting a fistful of dollars.
Well, you know, I couldn't figure out, ladies and gentlemen, when Russ when he came on, he was laughing. And he was like, "You're not gonna believe this, Grizzly." And I'm like, "What?" He was like, "When I was in school and he told me the story, I was like, no, why?" I was like, "What?" I'm like, "You gotta tell the story." And he was like, "I was laughing." And I was like, you know, because the first, you know, 20, 30 minutes is nothing but poo, 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 you know?
Yeah.
And it, you know, and it was just like, I was like, you know, unbelievable, you know? I mean, I cannot imagine. I mean, he's like, yeah, yeah, I'm like,
Jan seemed to be entertained as well.
no, I was like, yeah. So, you know, I mean, I just, you know, I mean, there's certain things in life I cannot deal with, you know, but when it comes to, you know, bodies and stuff like that, I'm good. But other stuff, I'm done. So, I mean, but you know, a guy never has touched a cigar, from my understanding, since. So,
Well,
so I have,
I was going to say something, but I don't want to lower the tone of the show.
yeah,
Um,
right, yeah, we don't want to go in the ditch,
no,
right?
what,
So,
but what I couldn't understand about what he said was about setting fire and pouring petrol and then chucking and then it going up. Well, I didn't quite get what he meant. Did he
oh,
mean to
so
say that?
yeah, it went all over the yard and the house.
No, but when he said the flames and it blew up,
Yeah,
why did it blow up? I didn't understand that
gasoline.
part.
Yeah, he put too much out of fury and frustration, and, you know, because we got 5 gallon
Right, I
gasoline
see.
cans. Yeah, so yeah, so
Flipping heck.
I've
I,
put too
I,
much
I,
gasoline on a campfire before and burnt my arm hair and eyebrows, and so yeah.
because I thought he meant that the pole were inflammable.
Oh no, it went all over the yard, evidently. Kaboom. Yeah.
Flipping
So
heck.
yeah. So
that was like the early morning show sort of like, and my sister shouting down to me, what are you laughing at? Do you know what time it is? Sort of 4 o'clock in the morning. What are you laughing at? I thought I better not tell her. Pool. What?
I know, right? I mean, we hear a lot of interesting stories, right? And a lot of encounters. And we always think we got that interesting encounter, and we always think that one always tops the icing on the topper of the cake. And it's somebody always is the next level. And I don't know. It's just like, and then you tell me about the one at the school when you were younger, and it's like, wow, and it shows that intelligence level, right?
Oh yeah.
In the primates and how intelligent that they can communicate and single out somebody in a crowd and know which one that did it and launch that object back at that individual to pay paybacks.
Yeah.
That's just like, that's crazy.
This is it. I mean, it's the saying, seeing is believing. And that goes a long way. Really
I'm not saying just anybody in the crowd. I'm saying the one that threw the object.
Oh yeah. It picked him out, pinpointed him.
Yes.
And to hit him at the back of the noggin, sort of like just unbelievable. And it went because it went up and sort of like, because the fences have got holes in them, and they're not really big holes, but it were big enough for him to get the brick through. Well, it wasn't an half Charlie, but it was quite a big brick, and to get it through accurate. Oh hell, that hurt. And to sort of like straight across through the hole, the gap, and hit him, sort of like, were quite an achievement. But then again, sort of like the lad that did it, I nearly mentioned his name then. The lad that did it, sort of like how he managed to hit it as well, I don't know, because there were like a fence in front of a fence. If I remember rightly, there were a fence in front of the fence. So how he hit something, but he meant to hit it. You know what I mean? There's no doubt. You don't throw something where there's monkeys and expect not to hit something. You know what I mean?
Right.
He'd done it on purpose. It had gone there in that direction purposely to hit that monkey, as far as and the thing is, I think everybody else realized the same. In fact, I think one of the teachers was, a bit sloughened with the whole, bring you out for a day out and and you don't behave yourselves. So then that puts it on all of us then. One person misbehaves and then we all cop for it, sort of like, which is not fair, But yeah, I mean, I've heard that they'll throw anything at houses, anything around, sort of like originally, going back when they were doing some road work up above California, near the area where they took that first photograph of the Bigfoot, and the said that there'd been all sorts thrown around, massive big truck tires that had been thrown or looked like they'd been thrown quite a distance, and trees, sort of like being pulled down and thrown, and other objects and stuff that had been thrown. And then what you're hearing then again is that people say that there's bricks being thrown, rocks being thrown, big, slabs of trees, sort of like being thrown at houses, log cabins, and because, well, why are they doing that? Obviously, they're attracting the people to the fact that they're there. To start off with, you've got people there that can't really say that Bigfoot doesn't exist, because when there's something coming to your house and throwing things at your house, they must have an insight to just what's doing it.
Yeah, well, Thomas from Squatch Island, he'll tell you. He gets paid up in Canada. The loggers will pay him during the off season to go up there and sit on their camps and watch their equipment, so Sasquatch won't tear up their cabins and equipment and their whatever else stuff they have laying around. And he says they pay him good money and all the food he can eat.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, if you have a look, I mean, it's like vandals. It's more or less what vandals do to some of these building sites. And what they're saying is sometimes there's that much damage by vandals with the machinery that sometimes it's not worth doing the jobs in that area.
Well, a lot of people get scared and they quit and they won't come back.
Well, I could understand that.
So, and they have a high turnover rate. Some people do, but when they don't hire people to watch during the off season, they lose so much money with equipment and damage. So that's what Thomas has said on several of my shows, that, he'll go up there and sometimes he'll take a buddy with them and pay a buddy to go up there, and he'll spend a month or two up there and just guard and hang out and camp. And I mean, they got cabins and trailers up there to live in, because that's where they work, where they're doing the, cutting down and lumber and cultivating or cutting down the trees and stuff. So,
wow. It just makes you wonder. I mean, it must be lucrative, but it must be, for them to get somebody in, and they've got what they're calling a nice number, where they're getting a nice pay, maybe even pay somebody else to go with him out of his own pocket, sort of thing, and all the food they can eat. Wow, some people would do it just for food and sleep and stuff, I suppose, now in some areas, sort of like with the job situation. But then again, some people won't do it for all the tea in China.
Right.
You know what I mean? Some people, you see, if you've experienced that working there, sort of like, and you've had to pack a job in because you've been so scared that all the money that they're saying that you've got isn't enough to keep you in a job, sort of like, you can understand just how frightened some of these people must be.
Yeah, there's actually been even some of the TV shows that are filmed in America, in some in Alaska. They have actually, some of the lumber mills have actually lost employees because of Sasquatch and Bigfoot encounters because they get freaked out and they can't keep hired help because some of their lumber mills are so remote. So so that's been noticed on some of the shows. So it's something that's been documented. And when Thomas, when he talked about it, I mean, he kind of laughed because I mean, he's I don't know, I can't remember what tribe he's from, and he's well known up there in British Columbia, right? And he's got his own Facebook group, and he was the one with Meldrum and David Pilates and everything on that cruise where Meldrum got sick and everything. But and he's and he's openly talks about Sasquatch, and he does tours and everything and stuff like that, and he's not the only one.
No.
Look at Old Bear. People call him when people have problem with Bigfoot or Sasquatch when it comes to peepers or property damage or destruction and vandalism. And they call him out to go out there, and he deals with the problem trials or the problem Sasquatches. So
that's right. I was watching one program, and one of the chaps had become ill because he said that like there's all the signs that there was Sasquatch, Bigfoot around, in these areas where they were looking. And they weren't just looking there for any reason. It's because these areas are what you call areas of interest. And that means that people had reported Bigfoot and Sasquatch in these areas, where they've been called out to look and to research with a film crew. And one of the guys, he'd just become ill with like this thumping headache and sort of like a pain inside his head emanating out, And what it is, I'd watched one or two because I watched, to be honest, I watched Bigfoot and Sasquatch, sort of like cryptid, sort of like programs now more than UFOs, to be honest. And it's not the first time I'd come across this. In fact, there's a lot of people that seem to be saying, and it's where there's like cryptids, sort of like where there's either Bigfoot or even dogmen or even these wolf men, like werewolves, that they're seeming to be getting like really bad pains in their head and like a super migraine. Sort of like I suffer from migraine and a lot, and but what they were saying, it's like one of these migraines, that you get where it's like a stroke. You can get a migraine to the point where you can't talk and your hearing goes and you can't see, your vision goes, and you get this, like, it's more than a headache. You feel like you're dying, really. And the number of people that are talking about this on these shows, where they've gone into these areas, where there's Bigfoots and Sasquatch and dogmen and even these wolf men that have been seen, have said this about these headaches and what have you. It's just unbelievable. And again, we were talking, and I think the chap brought this up last night a little bit, in between, sort of like talking about the dung being thrown, but about some kind of frequencies. And you brought something up which I didn't realize, And it was you'd mentioned that they said that some of the Sasquatch have two hearts. Is that right?
So allegedly, there was an incident with a person, and I won't say his name because his YouTube channel got taken down. That when he was a young child in his teens, he would play with a juvenile Sasquatch, and it went south, and he nearly got killed. He was attacked, and got his clothes ripped off. And what set it off? They were playing footsies up in the loft of the barn, and they were just acting like kids, right?
Yeah.
And they were making faces and pushing their feet against each other. And he beat his chest, and he set this juvenile Sasquatch off, and the juvenile attacked him. Well, you remember he lived out in the country, and 45 years ago, nobody had central air. So remember, in the country, open windows.
Yeah.
The family heard screaming, weird noises. The father came running, saw his son. The father had a shotgun, took a shot, didn't do nothing. The juvenile took off. The daddy showed up. Make a long story short, juvenile broke into the neighbor's house. The neighbors came down, heard what's going on, all the commotion. That came through the bathroom window. The family member took a shot or two. It escaped out of the house. They tracked it down, recovered the body, and they performed an autopsy on it. And they took pictures of it, and they took the pictures to school, and for show and tell. And that's when the government got involved, the Indian tribe, and everybody else. All hell broke loose, and it's all unfolded on the air, and it all came to light. And the guy's YouTube channel got shut down, and he told the story how his family got threatened, and the elders of the Indian tribe and the government officials threatened the family and so forth. I mean, it's very, very detailed story. Wow. So, and when the family did the autopsy on the juvenile, they noticed that it had two hearts in it. So, but they confiscated the pictures, of course, right? So they didn't have the pictures, but he testified to that, and he still had the scars and to prove the attack and so forth. So when it comes to the headaches and the migraines and disorientation out in the woods and so forth, there are two theories on this, and this is where a lot of people say this happens. One theory is that they resonate such different vibrations and frequencies, right? Yeah. That their aura around them are so strong, their magnetic field is that when we get close to them, it disorients us, right? So their energy fields makes us sick. That's one theory. And some people say that is true, that they have to tell them, the ones that are close to them, and it's been around them for a lifetime, tell them they have to back their energy levels down. That's what we were told. Second theory is that infrasound, right? Is that they can hit you with infrasound, to where they can disrupt us. We know that the government uses that as weapons and to disrupt our thought process. And we know that we can use frequencies to cure different illnesses in different countries within ourselves. I notice I'm going up for spinal stimulation on October 17th to maybe see if I'm a candidate for the implant. Now, there's two different parts of that. One, they use a frequency to resonate into the spinal cord to a certain frequency to pinpoint nerves,
Yeah.
to stun them, to burn them, right, at a certain frequency, or they're going to implant wires to will be like a TENS unit full time, Bobby Wild,
Right.
right? So that's
Wow.
interesting. So now we know that it is possible and plausible that we know that frequencies do vibrate. And like on the show last night, different crystals and minerals had frequencies too, right?
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
and it was interesting that Old Bear was talking about that when he was out during West Virginia or somewhere, that he noticed that one location he was finding certain color or quartz that as he walked up the mountain, they were spiraling. And as he went up, they spiraled all the way up to a point, right, to the top of the mountain. And he made note of it and drew a diagram. And then after so many months, he was watching another show on a podcast and he realized that, hey, wait a minute, that this guy's camping and he found the same thing and he reached out to him, but he didn't really say too much. And it was similar. So, and then he talked to Kat from Australia, which is into crystals and vibrations and
Yeah.
string theories and remote viewing and dowsing and trying to put the pieces of the puzzles together, right? So then, is this another theory that they're using that as a protection barrier or a beacon, as a gathering place or a warning, or is this a place to where if you come into this area, you're breaking the vibration of the frequency level, and we know that you're here. It's like a alarm system. So now that's I know it's reaching out there, but is it plausible? Because if they can see through different spectrums that we cannot, right? Because we think that they can see IR and infrared that we cannot, just like other animals, and they can probably hear other frequencies that we cannot hear. Because we know they can vocalize that we cannot vocalize in different megahertz and hertz levels, right?
Yeah.
Beyond the spectrums that we cannot. So that is possible. So, like the electronics, like I've got monitors to the left and right in front of me. So if I get my EMF detector out, I imagine I'm setting off some electromagnetic fields around me, and it's probably resonating through my body. So, yeah. So I think that it is possible. Now, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, uh, we had him on one of our shows, and my belief when he talked about his encounter with Bigfoot and his girlfriend, when he had his encounter, when he had Bigfoot on the bank, and when it screamed and growled, and the growl was so loud, and it knocked his girlfriend out of the boat, the John boat, right? Not a big boat, but just say a John boat. That is, to me, sounds like infrasound, right? Because he said it went through him, and it was like I don't want to quote him, but like something turned up on a sound stage to like level 12 on a bass. I think that's what he said, but don't quote me. But it hit with such force, the energy did. And then it wasn't, I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, don't quote me, but it was months after that she passed away from a heart attack and she was healthy. That doesn't make any sense. Now, we're trying to figure out with people that's been hit with infrasound, we're noticing, and this is not proven, and ladies and gentlemen, this is just theories and being theoretical here. Is it any related to people with having many strokes, seizures, heart attacks, or any other medical problems? Now, we are noticing with people that have portals on their property that we're seeing with cattle that are having issues with health, dying heifers, young cattle that are dying. And we're also seeing cattle that are staying away from certain property, edges of property that are supposed to have portals or these energy fields. Example, Skinwalker Ranch, where they had that cattle mutilation that one year. And that cattle laid there for over a year, and the flies wouldn't even touch it, or any animal wouldn't even touch it. And they had weird radiation levels and weird electromagnetic fields around that area. And all the cattle would not go to that area. The cattle will stay away from that part of that acre or that land, right? So there's a lot of questions around there and that's unexplained. Hopefully Russ will come back. So there are a lot of theories out there, but how can we scientifically? Yes, no, animals do know, you're right. How can we scientifically prove that? Because when something, and we covered this on one of the other shows, when an animal has been mutilated in some force and fashion, and another animal does not remove that carcass, buzzards, turkey, buzzards, whatever, nature does not reclaim an animal. There is something wrong, right? There is something is not natural. And when animals do not gaze or graze on that particular part of land and they stay around and away from there, then yes. And right, Gary, a dog at Brown Springs laid there until rotted. Right. You're absolutely right, Gary Spike Sr. And I agree with that comment. So there are a lot of theories, right? So we had a psychic person with abilities in Australia that has a portal on her property, and she was losing a lot of calves, and she had to rearrange her feeding stations and her bales of hay because the energy fields were causing health problems. So there are a lot of theories going around, but I think with some other people that have PhDs and MDs and so forth that are playing and dipping into the cryptid field are kind to swinging in with the infrasound, that there are probably some relations or correlations that are having some medical issues related in some form or fashion. I think they're right, and I do concur with that. Because if they want to cause damage, they can, right? If they want to hit you with infrasound to make you to lose your bowels, they could. If they want to cause permanent damage, they could. And if they don't want to, and they did by accident, it could happen. So they actually did that to us, didn't they? Where was that? The government did that. They used a frequency, and all the people, was it the Saudis or Arabians? They thought God was talking to them, and they laid down the weapons. They broadcasted on a frequency, and they thought God was talking to them. Everybody's like, "Oh, God's talking to me. I'm laying down my weapons, and we're not fighting anymore." And it was called the God Complex,
That's right.
or God something. Somebody had to fact check me on that. Animals either diseased or something else is wrong. So it was weird, Eric. Yeah. So when nature doesn't reclaim something, it's very interesting. That's why you don't see bears or deer remains and stuff like that. So because there are farms or certain locations in the United States, especially for human remains, how nature reclaims forensics, so we can study how nature reclaims during different climates, so we can know how long a body is out there in the elements, and also time lapse cameras to record that, and also with animal remains too. in how things
Yeah.
are scattered. Animals take and scatter remains out in the wilderness as well. So it's very interesting. Yeah, God frequency. Thank you, Eric. Yes, the God frequency. That is correct. Thank you. So the government knows about it. So yes, thank you for fact checking me. I couldn't remember what it was called. Yes. So it is, and I think that is plausible.
Funnily enough, you were just saying about farms in people having problems and what have you. Well, I came across something very strange last year, and an area what I've been looking at where there's been one or two things seen there. There's been an haunted figure. There's been flying saucers that have landed. There's been flying saucers that have crashed. But near this area, this is in a place in North Wales. Near this area, there was a farm. And I was talking to somebody who rang me up because I've been in the paper talking about this crash of this flying saucer, and did anybody see it? And he said he hadn't seen it, but he knows of the area. He's worked around that area, and what he went on to say was quite bizarre. He says that there was a massive big farm building there. He says, and there was like a farmhouse and then a row, a block, a building, and a large car park, which could accommodate about 80 cars. And he says, I've never known any farm in the UK, Great Britain, England, Wales, where there's a farm that would, if a car would be driven by one person and there's a car park for 80 people, he doesn't know of anybody, right? Yeah, any farm that employs 80 people, right? He says, even if there was growing fruit, say, and there was pickers, the pickers usually in this country live in caravans, and it's like seasonal. So you'd never have 80 people in a car park for 80 people. And the farm itself, the area, wasn't that big. So what were these cars doing, and what was this area? Right, yeah. What was they actually doing?
That's interesting.
Because nobody had seen any of them working there. Nobody'd seen any farmers working there. You know what I mean? So
Sounds like a
what were
cover
all...
then.
Yeah. And it was really quiet near this area where there'd been flying saucers that had landed on a number of occasions. One occasion at this area, I was talking to somebody on the phone, and there was somebody at his house who was a fireman, and he had a call on his one of these bleepers, pages they used to be called back then, and it paged him, and he says, I'm gonna have to go, I've been called away, there's something landed in the middle of this road, right? And the thing is, he actually told my friend that it was some kind of unknown craft, and they had, I don't know how many what they called services, 13 services out, which means appliances, which means a fire truck. But it's in a rural area. They had to call to 3 different counties to get 13 different appliances there.
Huh.
Why would you need 13 appliances?
Do they think it crashed or something, or they didn't
Well,
know?
it crashed. They know it crashed because my friend went out in his 4x4 and he got turned back by the police and by military.
Oh, wow.
Because this chap who was the firefighter who is in Ewing from work, and he were at his house when he got the pager, when he got the call, it bleeped him and told him, there's been an incident. Can you get down to this location? And he knew there was something suspicious, so he went, and the police and then the military were there turning all the cars back. You can't go down this road. So,
Wow.
and this is where the reason why because it's right next to this area, this farm, sort of like where there's a car park for 80 people, sort of like, and the thing is, he said that he'd seen, sort of like quite a number of people, like that. He'd seen quite a number of people there, and he said the thing is, he still to this day, sort of like couldn't understand why there'd be 80 cars parked in this area because he couldn't see what they were doing. Sort of like they weren't out in the fields or anything as such, and if it doesn't equate to 80 people being parked there, to 80 people being on this area, on this farm area, in the fields or going out, you know what I mean? So how comes he says every day he went past there, he says, and every day you had the same number of people in those cars, and you never ever saw those people out doing jobs. And he said, but the thing is, what was they doing inside this big building?
Right.
So I said, I mean, and he said it was a big building, but he says, it'd have to have been huge, to have 80 cars in, one person a car. So that'd be like 80 people. You can milk, I don't know how many 100 cows a day just by a couple of people going round. You know what I mean? It'd have to be a mega installation to have 80 people inside, and the thing is, they couldn't see the cattle, they couldn't see, a big enough area. So it's a mystery. So this is funny because some people are talking about, like with Sasquatch, in some of these areas where there's woods, but right next to lush land where there's rivers, the streams, and there's quite a lot of crops growing. Sort of like, so there's crops growing that might be vegetables, sort of like, it might be fruits and what have you. So, there's areas where Sasquatch, Bigfoot, sort of like could, if they wanted to eat that type of food, sort of like, or vegetables, or if there were the other places where there's orchards, apples, pears and what have you. There's all that sort of like food there as well. And what comes around to these areas, of course, deer and other animals wanting
Right.
to eat, you know, and the farms are there. And what people have been saying is that they've noticed, sort of like some of these farms have seemed to have been bought, I should say, by the government, and the government are sort of like not using them. So this is another thing where there's a lot of this, like lovely lush land where there's been farming, fruit and vegetables and all sorts, and it seems like they've been bought out and they don't seem to be doing anything with the land.
That's interesting.
And I've heard from a number of people have said that there's been a lot of Sasquatch around, and some of these farms are sort of like whether they've made a nuisance of themselves coming on the property. I don't know. Sort of like, so what's going on?
So we're getting reports that over here that people are getting reports that we're getting hotbed areas, right? Hot spots of activity, and the spots where they're located are being burnt out. The woods are being burned. So
Well,
that's what we're getting.
if you go back to earlier this year, what have we had? Sort of like talks of all these fires. So, well, they're doing it then, this year.
Yeah,
When there's
B.
been all these forest
You,
fires.
you got Bigfoot in UK, woodsman, harryman. You got them in your churches over there carrying clubs. The y'all have them back there. Gosh, y'all got history with the woodsman. Isn't that what y'all call them over there?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of names for them. Sort of like, there's quite a few different names for them, really. But we're not getting them as much. There's a few staggered areas. There's one near, a big city, Birmingham, and there's an area there where there's sort of like said to be some of these creatures hanging around. Whether you put them down to dogmen, Bigfoot, which some people have said, yeah. Some people have said dogmen. And there's been all sorts of other strange creatures seen, which, sort of like, yeah, sort of like, it could be true. It could be true. You just don't know, but that is just in one place. Then we've got Scotland. We've got quite a lot going on up in Scotland. Around here, we've had these sightings of something, just what it is remains to be seen. Some people have called a dog man. Some people say it could be a werewolf. I know that just, I think it's about 3 miles up the road, that there's an area where there's a Flixton werewolf where I live. That was supposed to have been seen, apparently all the way down to Hull.
Wow.
And that had a smell about it. And one of the chaps that does the dogmen and cryptic groups, he was talking about it, and he said, do you remember they'd called it? It was something to do with like sulfur, Stinky or something. This wolf man, this werewolf. I'll have to try to get him on the show one week. Sort of like because he's a good chap to talk to.
Yeah,
And then
be
we've
great.
got Scotland. We've got North Wales. We've got all sorts of strange creatures that had been seen around North Wales. And we've got, of course, people that have said that they've seen aliens. When I were looking into a big report of the Berwyn Mountains, this famous case, when I were looking for information, I had information, people saying, well, we don't know much about that, but we can tell you that there's people that have been seeing aliens in the village, in one or two villages. So, sort of like that is something that I had problems with my computer. Then I lost a load of information. And then the person just seemed to sort of like disappear and sort of like not tell us any more about, these incidents with people being, apparently abducted by aliens as well. So that is something, because I've had so much to do and because it's been hectic, what with one thing and another, with hospital appointments and all sorts, sort of like illness, injury, and then problems with the computer, sort of like, and then losing contact. I need to get back in contact with some of these people. In fact, really, now I would say I've got to really get into the swing of things and to really get on, because, sort of like chasing some of these stories up, from people that have said that they've seen aliens, people that have said that they've heard that people in their village have been abducted, and so that's what, sort of like I'm looking at doing next. But the problem is, the truth of the matter is, Grizzly, right? Yeah, I've got a lot, but I'm supposed to be doing this third book, which I haven't been well enough, really, 100%, to even get it properly started, and sort of like, so what I'm going to have to do is really put my foot down and have a go at getting some more information. Get some more
Right.
information out there.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
it's one of these things. It's one of these things. It's easier said than done. And I feel sorry for a lot of the people in the subjects that are investigating, because I know over here in the UK, the expense of getting round and traveling, investigating, sort of like reports and sightings of cryptids and UFOs and aliens, sort of like hitting the roof, with
Yes.
the gas, the petrol, diesel, sort of like, and then, sort of like we're talking about people going ghost hunting, how much it costs to go ghost hunting and what have you. And, like something like $50, $60 per person, So there's a heck of a lot of cost involved. And I don't think some people understand, sort of like, just how much it costs, like just to be an investigator in this subject.
Yeah, it does. Subscription fees, advertising fees. It adds up, and
I
and
mean,
I appreciate
this is
everybody
it.
that donates and helps, and like Noah and Barb and Bob and
Yeah.
La and everybody. It just Brian and Eva and Ev and all them. Just it
Yeah.
all adds up. It really
Oh,
does.
it does. I mean, I used to have a website, and the website, you're looking at £1,000 a year, like because I used to have it made for me and can't afford that anymore. You know what I mean?
Stanley Stones wants to know: do you got an underground military base? You think that building is? You think?
Oh yeah, that's one of the things. Standing Stone. Yeah, that is one of the things what we've surmised because it all fits into a famous case called the Berwick Mountains over here in North Wales. And I mean, you'd be surprised around here, the things that are around here, military bases, underground bases, secret facilities, secret naval facilities, naval intelligence, and what have you. You just would not believe it. And they're right next to crash landing sites. You just wouldn't believe this. You couldn't make this up, but we've got a video of a UFO that has landed, and we've been over. Me and my ex-girlfriend went over, and she's brilliant. She'll find a way around anywhere. You know what I mean? And I pinpointed it, and she said, "Oh, we'll get to it." We were there in half an hour. We were there. She was parked over the area, and she said, "That's where it came down there." I said, "You're right. It is." But we
Wow.
had to be careful because it's an area where there's log cabins where people go for holidays, and it's just next door. It's just next door to this camping site. But you can see the thing when it landed, and it lights up, and it moves across to these trees. And then my friend, I'm talking to him on my mobile, and he's there filming out of his window. He's hanging out 80 foot up of his window, right, from a big dormer window in these flats. And he's filming. And he said, "I'm going to have to come in now." Which he said, "My nose is bleeding." He's been dangling 80 foot up from a window.
Wow.
And he says, "I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised his nose is bleeding." But he's filming everything he's talking about, what he's just done, and his nose bleeding. He's there, and you can see him on camera talking. And that's right next to. We've got an area. I won't mention it because it's a secret military facility, right? Yeah. So I won't mention it because I don't want it to get us into trouble or anything. But it's
Right.
in Scarborough, and it's known, I suppose. A lot of people know about it. But we don't want to shove people's noses in it, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But it's where there's been this landed, and a number of other craft over the years have landed not half a mile from this facility.
Wow.
And that's not hearsay because I've got the video. But the problem is, at the moment, I've got 3 videos that are pending to be scrutinized and looked at, and to go into this something that's going on with media. So I'm just waiting now. But it's one of these things where I've made a decision. I told you the other night that I'm only going to wait so long, and then one night I'm going to do a special with us talking and show video footage, if you see what I mean. So
Right.
that it's not, so you're going to be talking, and people can come on, and they can actually, like tonight, they can basically put comments up and what have you, you know. And I feel that that's the way forward, you know, sort of like, to be honest. So, but, you know, there is areas around here, and there's, you know, to be quite honest, there is quite a few bases. There's an old base where there's talk of, you know, occult goings on, people being killed and stuff. And it's documented in the papers though. And I've been over once, and I went round this area, and I got a real bad vibe from it.
Wow.
And when I get a bad vibe from something, usually I'll either jump in with both feet, or I will get the hell out of there. And I said to my friend, you know what? I'll stay up here. I don't want to be going down, you know, through those big doors down into that underground base and what have you. I'm quite all right where I am.
Wow.
You know. But yeah, I think there is a lot of underground bases. You know, I think there's a number of underground bases around the UK, obviously, you know, and a number of places where I've actually witnessed and videoed, you know, craft. When we've gone back and we've looked, you know, sort of like there's definitely, you know, UFO activity, and there's what you would call bases. Where I were abducted, there's a massive big base, and I didn't realise until I went back. And I'd said to my girlfriend, me at the time, that there is US stroke UK military base, and it looks like something out of Star Wars. There's all these big balls in this massive area, like white and silver balls and stuff, you know, like for I think it was Star Wars project and what have you. All these antennas sticking up. It looks like something out of a city in Star Wars, honestly.
Wow.
You know, you won't believe it. You really won't. But you know, like I say, I think what's needed is a little bit more footage, and you know, talking about some of the areas, so people can actually get to grips with why these areas are important, why these areas have been called, you know, hotspots, capitals. Although I'd seen something in the paper the other day, and it was saying about UK's hotspots and areas. But the problem is, and this is what they don't seem to understand, there's people like me that no longer report, right? Yeah, no longer report UFOs, because after you've been doing it so many years, who am I going to report it to? I'm one of head investigators in UK. Who am I going to investigate? You know, send my investigations to. You know what I'm saying? Who am I going to report it to? You know, there's nobody in, you know, like before we used to have this so-called UFO hotline from, you know, sort of like Whitehall, you know, for UFO reports, where 25 years ago you could ring in and you could report UFOs. And then it got where you couldn't ring in anymore. And then you had to send everything by email, right? And then they closed it down, right? So there's a lot of people, if you think about it, like me, I'm filming things. I'm filming things every night. I think I showed you on my mobile. Now I don't even go out as such with my camera, which is a pity, you know. Anyway, I won't go into it, but for health reasons. But so once I get that sorted out, hopefully I'll be able to go out more. But I'm looking, right, yeah. I'm looking every day, you know, sort of like at say for instance, video footage, right? And oh, that's good. Just realised something. I'll just show you this. I'll just show you this. This is just one thing. It's some people like this. Some people say, "Oh, it's nothing." Here we go. Are you ready? Hang on. Where are we? Where are we? Here we go. You see that?
It flew across the top.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just one, you know, that's just one little clip, but I thought I'll show you a fast clip of something that you wrong. So I wanted to show, you know, sort of like a few different clips and what have you, longer clips, and I'm trying to find a way to. I can do it on me. What do you call it? If I go to me present, so I've just learned how to do this now. So when I do it and put everything to my computer, I can show it then on a screen, you know, like you do with you're presenting. So you can see the bigger picture without me messing about showing you on my phone that way.
Danny Stones wanting to know what do you think about Nick Pope?
No comment.
No comment. There we go.
But
right.
You know, it's one of these things where, you know, what we've got to do, we've got to, you know, sort of like what you've got to remember, right? Yeah, that you can't tell somebody who's seen a UFO, seen a flying saucer, seen a spacecraft, seen an alien, and been abducted, you know, sort of like, as I'm a what you call an abductee, super soldier, call it what you want, right? Yeah. I'm not interested what anybody from the government, whoever it is, right? Yeah, says. I'm not interested in their opinion because their opinion, you know. So I'm going to say something, but I don't want to bring the show down to that kind of level. But you know, so everybody's got an opinion. But the problem is, it doesn't matter whether you're in the military, in the government, or whatever, right? Yeah. If you haven't had it happen to you, you haven't seen a craft, you haven't seen an alien, you haven't been abducted, you haven't been put into a military unit, right? Yeah. How do you know anything about that subject? You might have worked at a desk, right here, collecting information about UFOs and what have you. But the thing is, if it hasn't happened to you, you haven't seen, you haven't witnessed, how do you know? You've got no voice. As far as I'm concerned, you've got no voice in the matter. You know what I'm saying? And especially if you're working for the government, you're not somebody that I'm interested in speaking to. Because, you know, what's the saying? And it's the same old saying: we can neither confirm or deny. I can confirm. I can't deny. It's as simple as that. So what people have got to realize is stop putting these people on pedestals, right? Yeah. Stop putting these people on pedestals that work for the government, military, it doesn't matter who they are. Because the thing is, if it hasn't happened to them, they can't talk about it. And if they talk about it, they're talking about something that they don't know about. You know what I mean? So it's like, why would I be interested in what somebody who works in an office thinks about what he hasn't seen, hasn't witnessed? You know what I mean? Anyway, if you see what I'm saying, you know, talk to the people that have seen these things, that have videoed them, because there's some people that will tell you they've been doing this for 10 years, 20 years. You ask them for any evidence, any photographic evidence, video, and they've got nothing. They can tell a good story, and they might have wrote a couple of books, you know, sort of like, and they might have wrote a couple of books before they wrote books on that subject, which always makes me wonder, you know, so you're an author, and then about other things, and then you're an author about this subject now. All right. That always sets alarm bells off. You know what I mean? So, like I say, it's a case of, I'm not knocking anybody. All I'm saying is there's people, and you see them going to these conferences, and oh, you know, sort of like, look at so-and-so, big deal. Have they seen anything? Have they videoed anything? Have they been abducted? No. Oh, okay then. Well, what are they doing on these shows? What are they doing on these shows talking about something that they've never seen? They've never witnessed, they've never experienced. You know what I mean? It's ludicrous, isn't it, really? If you think about it, you know, but that's just it. You see, the problem is that I think a lot of these programs are run by the government, and they put their own people in. You know, I mean, I was watching one. There's a guy who's been working at Skinwalker Ranch. Have you seen this guy? He's been working at Skinwalker Ranch, right? Yeah. But yet he's been working for another company, and he was told, you can't tell the people that you're working for that you're doing any of this with us, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, he comes, and this series, he comes and tells everybody, well, I've been working and doing this in, you know, for this company, and I could have gone to prison if I'd have told you. Personally, myself, would I have sat down with him and worked with him again after he'd told me and the rest of the crew that he'd been doing something, you know, sort of like with another company, and he wasn't told, it was told not to tell them? Would you work with him? Would you, Grizzly?
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, but if somebody had said that they'd been working, you know, on the side for another company, and you were told not to tell the rest, that's secrecy. You know what I mean? I don't
Sounds like conflict of interest to me, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah, well, I want to talk to him. I'd turn around and say, you know what? No. I won't say, I would say something in Broad Yorkshire, but I better not. I'd say no, thank you. You know, sort of like, there's no chance I would sit down and entertain that guy ever again. You know? But that's just me. You know? But, yeah. So, yeah, they were saying he knows the place that we're talking about, Standing Stones. I think he says something. One of the places is just outside the Berwyn Mountains, Standing Stone. In fact, you know, it's quite away from there when I think about it. Well, it isn't. It isn't. You might have heard of it. It's a place called Horseshoe Pass. It's a place called Horseshoe Pass. and I have got I've got an audio tape, right? Yeah, I've got an audio tape where I'm talking to the fire service, I'm talking to the Coast Guard, I'm talking to the ambulance department, and I'm talking to the police, right? Yeah, and I'm ringing them asking if they can tell us, and fire service, like what's going on this area. Something was seen to come down and land, and I'm not joking. Did it get heated? Did that conversation get heated? And the people that I played it to were laughing their heads off because I run rings round them. Because there's one asking me, well, why would you ring us? And I said, well, this object was seen coming in from the sea. This was the Coast Guards. And he said, why would you ring us? I said, I'm ringing all emergency services up, right? So I said, because yours is on the edge, right? Yeah, the Coast Guard. So you're on the coast. This thing was seen coming in, right? Yeah, from the west, east, right? So obviously it's come in. The only place it could have come in from, right? Yeah, was the sea. So this Coast Guard turned around then and says, oh, well, we was told, what did he say? He said something really silly, like the police told us. And I said to him then, wait a minute, why did the police ring you? You've asked me why I've rung you about something flying that's coming from the sea and you're the Coast Guards. Why has the police rung you about the same thing? And you know what he did? You know what the Coast Guard did that I was speaking to?
Hung up on you.
Yeah. Predictable. And we were laughing. Then I spoke to the police and they turned around and they says, oh, it was a practical joke. It was a hoax. And I says, but there were 13 fire appliances out there. How do you know that? I said, because I've rung all the departments. I said, all the different fire services. I said, not only in Wales, in Liverpool, and Chester. Oh, right. So then she realised that I'd been researching it properly, so she knew that I'd rung around and I had been asking. And she said, well, all as I can tell you is, she says that we was told that it's just a hoax. And let's leave it there. So I said, okay, then, well, thank you very much for your time. So, sort of like, I have got a box which is 3 foot by 2 foot, and it's 2 foot high. No, 1 foot high, maybe just a bit higher, of audio tapes, right? Yeah, going back 25 years from all the calls that I've made, right? Yeah, all the calls that I've taken from UFO reports and all the phone calls that I've made investigating each UFO report.
Wow.
And when you listen, sort of like, and when a desk sergeant tells you something and he's reading from his computer screen, and he goes, that's official freedoms Act, official freedoms, Freedom of Information, Official Secrets Act. Oh, that's a strange one. You don't want to know about that. when I've just rung him and asked him about something that had been seen on that day, at that time, in that area that he's looking at, and he reads that, that's a strange one. You don't want to know about that. And I said, I think that's oh well, I can't talk about it. So I already know that something has happened. And you know what that something that happened was? Do you know what it was? It was the flying saucer that had landed right next to that caravan park, right? So that's when you put two and two together. He's filming this thing that's landed next door to this caravan park, right, in this field. I've rung and told him the location, the time, and what it was, these strange lights. He's looked and then he's told me that that's what it says on his internal message board, right? Yeah, that's what's come up. So obviously something did land. So that means that video, what I'm talking about, is something special.
Right.
Yeah, you see, and this is a difference. This is a difference because I can do this on a number of occasions. I can just go have a look now, and I can go into my files, and I can talk to you about something that had been videoed, UFO report, video evidence as well, accompanies it, and then the audio tape that goes with it from when I've investigated. So you've got the paperwork, you've got the video, and then you've got the audio. So the thing is, and I've got that with most of my cases. Most of the, and a lot of the cases are the things that me and a couple of friends are videoing. You know?
Right.
It's like, it's what we're videoing. So, you know, sort of like, and other people, obviously. But, you know, it's a case of, that's a lot of evidence. You know, it's going back nearly 30 years now. You know what I mean? So, like I say, that's why I think maybe, you know, putting up something a little bit different and, you know, sort of like having video footage and talking about it and having people, you know, sort of like come in and look at the footage and see what they think. You know,
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think it's a way to go. You know, I think it's a way to go, to be honest. So anyway, yeah. So what's new now then? What's Grizzly doing next?
I have no idea. Working on promos, working on shows, so gonna
Is that,
take the rest of the night off and just do a couple promos for tomorrow and some advertising.
and is it sausage and what do you call it, sauerkraut tonight?
Pigs in a blanket.
Oh no. Oh, I thought it might be wiener in a bath cake.
Yeah, right.
A wiener
So,
in a bun. A wiener in a
yeah.
bun. With mustard and ketchup on.
That's right.
Oh dear.
Good show. Good show.
Yeah, well, I hope people have enjoyed it, and like I say, that cracked me up listening about Bigfoot and the cigar man.
Yeah, you killed me coming on the show and telling me about the school incident.
Oh yeah, that were at Flamingo Park. I'm sure it was Flamingo Park Zoo. Yeah, flipping heck, that was unbelievable. But yeah, so I'll be listening to your next installment. That'll be good. Can't wait.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I will let you get back to your tea and to doing some of your other things that you need to do for your shows and what have you. But yeah, it has been a great show. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I hope people have got something out of that. If there's anything anybody wants to know, and if anybody wants to come on a show, just let us know. And they can always, sort of like come on and talk. And if you've got anything, if you've had a UFO report or a dogman, sort of like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, always nice to listen to other people's views as well.
Absolutely.
So then, yeah, I will say thanks again and good night. God bless to everybody. And
Good night. We'll see you.
thanks, Grizzly. It has
Thank you,
been
sir.
a great show.
Take care.